Tea time. Did you hear the story about the woman who was on her dating apps and she looked at it and said, you know what? Delete. She was tired of it. Living in Atlanta, she was like, these men are no. I'm not doing this no more. Forget it. So she's just going about living her life, enjoying herself, working her job. And all of a sudden she get this thought about this ex-boyfriend. Now, this is some guy that she had dated when she was in her early 20s. They didn't have no terrible time together. They was just young and dumb. And she wondered what he was up to. The last time she had spoken to him was about 5 years ago when she had heard that he was engaged. So she was like, let's see what's going on with him. So she tiptoed on over to his Facebook profile and she sees that his status says single. And she's like, oh, he was engaged. I wonder what happened. Let me go find the tea. And she gone in his inbox. Hey, big head, how you doing? He responds, hey, I'm doing well. Good to hear from you. She's like, yeah. And she's like, what's going on with you? And he's like, well, I just got a new job, so I'm excited about that. And she was like, that's great to hear. She's like, but I thought you was engaged. What happened? That was like 5 years ago. I would thought y'all be married by now. And he's like, nah, it didn't work out. She ended up not being a good match for me. And she's like, that's too bad, even though she ain't feel like that was too bad. And she was like, well, I got divorced a couple years ago, was finalized, so now I'm done with that and I'm single again. And he said, well, that's sad to hear. She was like, yeah, it is, even though she was thinking, I ain't sad about that. And she was like, well, you know what? If you single and I'm single, why don't I just come down next week and we can get married? And as soon as she said that, she was like, oh my God, I can't believe I said that. And she said it took him a whole minute to reply. And when he replied, he just said, okay. And she was like, okay, well, how about this? I'll come down on this day. I'll bring my parents to be a witness to our wedding, and we can go ahead and go to the courthouse. And he said, okay. So the next week came, and she sure enough drove back to her hometown where he still lives. And they went to the courthouse and got married, went to Red Lobster to celebrate, didn't even go on a honeymoon, didn't even have wedding rings or anything. And then she drove back home to Atlanta. So she was trying to think, well, you know what? We can't really have a long distance marriage. So she called him and said, you know what? I think I should just go ahead and go over there since you just got a new job. I'll go ahead and move to you. And he said, okay. Well, she goes to her boss and she says, you know what? Hey, why don't I transition from working in office to at home? I can be a remote worker. Her boss said, oh, you know what? Let me see if I can set that up. Give me a moment. She was like, okay. Well, while she's waiting to hear back from her boss, her husband calls her and he's like, you know what? I just got laid off my job. I know I just started, but it didn't work out. And she's like, that must mean it's time for you to come. Instead of me going there, you come move down here to Atlanta with me. And he said, okay. So he comes down and moves to Atlanta with her. They living together. They trying to work it out. But things are starting to get rocky because they in their mid-30s at this point. And he is set in his ways, she's set in her ways. She got a flip mouth, acting all wild at times, but he's just real chill. So every time he get on her nerves, she be like, you know what? I'm leaving. We getting a divorce. This over. And he'll be like, no, you're not. And she'll be like, oh, I can't believe it. But they started adjusting to each other, getting to know each other better, finally dating as adults. And she realized, you know what? This man has the core qualities that I want in a man, so I can't really let him go. He don't have any kids. He don't cheat. He bring his whole paycheck home, and he don't give up on me. No matter how much I push his buttons, no matter how much I get frustrated and I want to walk away, he always looking at me and say, you're not going nowhere. And she liked that. And she said it's been about 10 years, and she thinks about the risk she took when she asked him to marry her, and she's like, it was worth it. It was worth it. Because she's happy. And they still together.